So I want to be a councillor because I've been passionate about politics for a very, very long time, and I'm also really passionate about Melton and our local community. And as somebody in their mid-30s, I thought I could bring a very different perspective to the council, because I think it's important that the council is representative of the community as a whole. People often associate councillors with being people who are retired, and older people, or people who have got, who've got the time and the money to become councillors. And I wanted to make sure that people of my age, young people with young families are heard in Melton.
The reason I wanted to be a councillor was because, nearly 16 years ago now, my son was very young. He was about 4, and I'd been living in Melton for a few years and just thought to myself that I would like to have an impact in the place that he lives and grows up in. If I could get involved in activities for young people, get involved in the economy and businesses to make Melton a thriving and prosperous town, then there would be places for him to go, a job for him to have. So that's really why I started to become a councillor. For me personally as well, it was I grew as a person, became more confident, became more knowledgeable about Melton Mowbray, got involved in a lot more activities. So that was my reasoning behind becoming a councillor.
I wanted to become a councillor due to the fact that I wanted to help people and make a difference to my community and to the borough of Melton. So one of the reasons that I liked carrying out this role is the fact that you can actually help people and make a difference to their lives. So one example of that is maybe helping somebody who's presenting as homeless, who doesn't know how to access services, but actually helping them to access the services and getting the housing that they need.
So one of the main reasons as to why I became a councillor is to help people and give something back to the community. So having lived in Melton for most of my life, I wanted to be able to enact sort of positive change in the areas that I had grown up in. Also, I know that the public sometimes have sort of preconceptions about who councillors are, what their backgrounds are like, sort of their age and everything. So I just kind of wanted to challenge that view. And obviously being a young woman who grew up on a council estate, I felt like I was sort of in pole position to be able to do that.
So I think my greatest achievement as a councillor is being an effective representative and making sure that my residents' voices are heard, but more specifically, I've helped residents with their issues, what matters to them, as well as making sure that we've got more affordable housing at Sizemby Farm.
The greatest achievement as a councillor, well, personal achievement, I would say I became mayor of the borough of Melton for a year. That was an honour, and I was invited to lots of different events, places that I'd never been before, and I made it my mission to visit every single primary school in the borough of Melton, and I think I managed it. So I did lots of assemblies, and that was one of my main goals, and to raise money for charity. One of my sort of greatest achievement to date, I think, however small you might think this is, but I've been involved on committees that have been responsible for parking, and I've managed to ensure that we don't have charges on a Sunday. People will criticise parking charges, but for me, I think it's really important that we keep at least one day free.
My greatest achievement as a councillor is actually improving our council housing landlord services. In 2019, coming in as a new councillor, it was quite apparent that the services were not fit for purpose, and we were not meeting our regulatory commitments to the regulator for social housing. So quite quickly, using my experience in housing, along with fellow colleagues and listening to tenants, we quite quickly developed a housing improvement plan, which is now at the fruition of actually being developed into action on the ground, where we're actually improving people's homes, carrying out repairs, helping people with the cost of living, and actually listening now appropriately to our tenants and giving them feedback.
So my greatest achievement as a councillor, I would say, is the role I played in keeping the Oasis preschool open. That was something that meant an awful lot to a lot of my residents, as it is in my ward. Also, I've helped out on a few really important planning application processes. One of those that was successful will have such a significant positive impact on one person's particular sort of mental, emotional and physical well-being. So I'm really quite proud of that one.
I think the skills and qualities that you need to have as a councillor are: you need to be a good listener, you need to listen to your residents' concerns, you need to listen to colleagues, and with that you also need to be a good negotiator. Politics is about getting the right things done for residents and our community, and you need to be able to bring people on board. As part of being a councillor, you need to make sure that you're able to absorb lots of information very quickly to help you make effective decisions and to scrutinise the executive properly.
The qualities and skills that I think are needed for a good councillor: the ability to read lots and analyse information quickly. You need to have a good analytical brain to represent your community effectively. There's lots of reports that you need to read, lots of information that you need to take on board to be able to be a critical friend to the council itself, to the officers and of the members, to ensure that you're being effective as a councillor. And also a sense of humour is always good at times. There can be long meetings, you can spend a lot of time here, getting on with people, having a good calm, friendly outlook is also really good.
Qualities of being a councillor are that basically you are good at communicating with people, you're sociable, you're listening, and you're fair with people, and you take people at face value and ensure that basically their views and their complaints and their issues are actually followed through to the appropriate services, and that you are clear on how you can use the council officers and the services the council provide to actually help people deal with the issues which they present to you. And overall, it's really about being out there, being present within your community and visible so that people know that you can help them.
I'd say you definitely need to have good timekeeping skills. You need to be quite organised. And one thing I've learned over the past few years is you definitely need to have a thick skin, because working in local politics, you know, you come across some quite emotive subjects and people aren't always going to like the decisions you make or things that you say. So you kind of have to be a bit tough and accept that not everyone's going to be happy with what you do.
Time commitment wise, I think being a councillor, you can make it what you want to make it. You can spend your whole life being a councillor, or someone like me who works full time, who has a family life. Structure, in terms of time structure, you obviously have meetings to go to and reading papers that are all associated with that. So there is an element of managing your time properly to cater all of that within your life.
I would say I spend about between 6 and 8 hours a week sort of working on ward issues, speaking to residents, working on things that they've asked me to do. Meetings can be different. They're usually on a schedule. You'll get sent that in advance, so you can sort of plan around that. I think you just kind of have to make sure that you can set aside that time. And I think what's often overlooked is just how difficult it can sometimes be to have that time to set aside. So I had a daughter during my second year of my term, and that can really sort of throw you off a little bit. So you just kind of have to be honest with yourself about how much time you can give.
So the time commitment for being a councillor can range according to what level that you join the council at, what committees you're on. I guess as a standard, somewhere between 3 to 4 hours a week just attending committee meetings. Some weeks there might not be any committee meetings, some weeks there might be. You might be actually at something every night. You can get involved in external groups, external activities linked to your counselling, so that can then add to the hourly commitment that you make. I think for me, the being a councillor is sort of embedded into my whole life. It's a part of everything I do. My emails come through on my phone, all the time. To be effective, probably some time management is good to sort of say, well, I'm going to spend so many hours a week on my emails, depending on what type of issues you might have in your neighbourhood, whether it's neighbourhood issues, planning issues. Sometimes you can be involved in things at unsociable hours or at weekends. It all depends what you as a person want to commit and what you want to put forward. I personally also have a full-time job. I work in education. I'm a teacher, and I do other charitable activities. So for me, it just forms part of that evening, weekend part of my life. So you can be really strict, you can make it a couple of hours a week, or you can find that, even if you add into the reading that you need for the reports, for the committees, you need to be quite active in that area to be able to participate. So that could take up, 1 to 2 hours a week as well. But it's interesting, and I'm sure people will get a lot out of it if they do it.
So the time commitments of being a councillor is you'll be expected to be on various committees depending on what size of political group you're in or what size of independent group you're in, and you may have to attend one meeting, which may be the council, or you may be on 2 or 3 committees. Sometimes on average, I think, being a sort of backbencher, having experience at that, you're probably talking about 4 or 5 hours commitment per week. If you're going on to chair a committee or being on cabinet, you're probably talking about 15 to 20 hours commitment a week, working in the council but also working with your residents. And that's the key thing to not forget, is you're not just here to come into the council for meetings, you're actually here to go out and about in your community and go to meetings such as parish council meetings.
My advice to people who want to stand for the council is do it. Your voice needs to be heard, and we need to make sure that we have a good range of people from across Melton and across the borough to be councillors.
The advice that I would give to people that are thinking about becoming a councillor is to find your passion. Passion can come in the form of passionate about the economy, passionate about planning issues, passionate about politics, finding a new skill, developing yourself as a person. As long as you find a passion, like I mentioned one of the other questions, that mine was to try and make Melton a better place for my son to grow up in and thrive in. Luckily, my son has had experiences that have involved lots of different clubs and activities. He's now at university studying artificial intelligence. I put his aspirations down to growing up in a really strong community in a really good place like Melton, the borough of Melton, and that they formed my passions. So that's the advice I would give to anyone thinking about becoming a councillor.
So the advice I would give to others is try and come along and watch some of the meetings, because they can be really, really daunting, especially when you don't know the process and you don't know the kind of council lingo. So if you come along to those, you can sort of get a feel for what's going on, and then once you're in the flow of things, it's a lot easier. Also, with the paperwork, start off reading into things that you're interested in, because that is much easier than opening a big wad of paper on something that you have absolutely no idea about. And ask for help. Don't be afraid to approach more senior councillors, because they are always happy to help.
My advice to others is, if you're considering to stand as a councillor, think about it, think about why you want to do it. Look at what maybe you might want to improve and achieve if you were elected. Think about your campaign and what you put on your campaign literature, because if you can't achieve what you put down, it's not going to be a very valuable experience for you and probably for the residents that you represent. The other bit of advice I would give is be clear about what the actual achievements that can be had being a borough councillor. Because remember, the borough council will provide certain services, but not all services, because some services in a two-tier authority are provided by the county council, and if you make certain commitments, you may not be able to influence those if the borough council do not provide those services.
can be really tough sometimes because obviously you meet people that are in really tricky situations. Go out and speak to people, because seeing a friendly face that they're familiar with, that they can trust, it really goes a long way with building those relationships with your residents.